chair. It is essential that even if we disagree, we treat each other with respect.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Roll call.
Abreu,
Present.
Ariola,
Present.
Aviles,
Presente.
Ayala, Banks, Botcher, Brannan,
Here.
Brewer, Brooks Powers,
Present.
Caban,
Present.
Carr,
Present.
De La Rosa,
Here.
Dinowitz,
Here.
Felice, Gennaro, Banks,
Present.
Gutierrez,
Presente.
Hanif,
Here.
Present.
Joseph,
Present.
Krishnan, Lee,
Here.
Lewis,
Present.
Marmorato,
Present.
Marte, Mealy, Menon,
Present.
Botcher,
Present.
Moya, Narcisse,
Present.
Nurse,
Present.
Osei, Palladino,
Here.
Powers, Wrestler,
Here.
Riley,
Present.
Rivera, Salam,
Present.
Salamanca,
Present.
Sanchez,
Present.
Shulman,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Ung,
Present.
Vernikoff, Williams,
Here.
Juan,
Present.
Yeager,
Here.
Zhuang, Borelli, Farias,
Present.
Speaker Adams,
Present.
Thank you. We will now have today's invocation, which will be delivered by Pastor Martin Chang of Edge City Church, which is located at 4616 Little Neck Parkway in Queens.
Can I invite you now to bow your heads with me as we pray? We get to invoke the name and the presence of God in our midst. Let's pray. God, our Father in heaven, may your name be known and revered. We give you thanks for all the goodness flowing from who you are. We thank you for all the kindness to all in our beloved city. At the same time, we are profoundly aware of the manifold needs in our midst, the signs of brokenness in the faces of familiar and stranger alike, the threat of breakdown in our systems. We beseech you for your help, working not only through the means of municipal polity and policy, but interfacing directly and throughout. God, you call us to seek the verdant welfare of this city and all who inhabit it, not just the privileged and influential, but the marginalized, the forgotten. May our eyes and ears be attentive to all, not just some. God, we are so grateful for these gathered, gifted leaders here, how they pour themselves out for the good of many millions they represent and serve. I ask that you would send timely downloads of supernatural compassion and innovation. Holy Spirit, won't you come and anoint these women and men with actionable wisdom and the humility to recognize and integrate it together. God, we grieve the increasingly polarized climate that makes it near impossible to genuinely hear one another. It feels as though it would take a miracle for a meaningful unity and purpose to take hold. But when it is according to your will, we are stirred to pray for such a miracle, and we do for such a time as this. God, full of love and power, we bless you. Won't you bless this stated meeting, this council, speaker? Amen.
Thank you. I would now like to ask Councilmember Linda Lee to spread the invocation on the record.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Pastor Martin Chang, otherwise known as PM, is currently serving as the teaching and equipping pastor at Edge City Church, a multi-ethnic, multi-generational church worshiping in 2 campuses in Little Neck, Queens, and Mineola, Long Island. He is ordained as a pastor in word and sacrament in the Evangelical Covenant Church and has been pastoring in the Pacific Northwest, then in New York, for going on 34 years. Beyond the care of souls, leadership, development, and equipping the community of Christ in a church setting, Pastor Martin has also had the opportunity to partner with community development organizations, building a long relationship with partners in Udaipur, Rajasthan, India. Pastor Martin has brought equipping and resources to rural schools, brought pumps for clean water for villages, facilitated mobile medical, dental, and optical camps, as well as counseling and leadership equipping. Having recently joined the staff at Edge City Church, he'll also be working with a sister organization called Mission 252 and partner organizations addressing the physical, social, emotional, and spiritual needs of marginalized people groups in Queens and Long Island. Thank you, Majority Leader. I would like to thank Pastor Martin Chang for being here today. And thank you, Pastor Martin, on a personal note, for always keeping me and my family and our community in your prayers. Thank you so much. And I make a motion for unanimous consent to spread the invocation in full upon the record.
Amen. We will now have the adoption of minutes by Councilmember Keith Powers.
Thank you. I make a motion of the minutes of the stated meeting of March 19, 2024 be adopted as printed.
Messages and papers from the mayor.
None.
Communication from city, county, and borough offices.
None.
Petitions and communications.
None.
Land use call-ups.
None.
Thank you. We will now have communication from Speaker Adrienne Adams.
Thank you very much, Majority Leader. Thank you so much, Pastor Chang. I usually try to get up and shake the hands of those delivering the invocations, but we thank you, Pastor Chang, for being here with us today, for spreading the invocation. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to acknowledge the death of 41-year-old Sarah McNally, a beloved bartender who was killed at her workplace in Councilmember Holden's district earlier this month. Our thoughts are with the Maspeth community and Sarah's loved ones during this very difficult time. This tragedy comes as we approach Workers' Memorial Day on April 28th and Building Safety Month, which is observed every May to raise awareness about the importance of workplace safety. It's a reminder of the need to advance stronger protections to ensure that our workers are safe while on the job. April 13th marked the start of Cambodian New Year. Our Cambodian communities have always been an integral part of our city's social, cultural, and economic landscape. To our Cambodian community here in New York City, I wish you a happy New Year. April 15th was Jackie Robinson Day. This year is the 77th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking Major League Baseball's racial segregation barrier when he became the first black player and started at first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. On this day, we reflect on his remarkable legacy and the enduring impact of his activism that extended beyond baseball. I want to also take a moment to wish our Jewish neighbors a peaceful and joyous Passover, which starts on Monday evening at sundown. This important holiday is a reminder of the importance of reflecting on history and passing on its lessons to future generations. Earlier this week, the Council's Jewish Caucus co-hosted a model Passover Seder with community partners and Holocaust survivors, and I want to thank everyone who made that event such a success. To everyone celebrating Passover, Chag Pesach Kakshir V'Sameach. April is also Earth Day, which serves as an important call to action, to act with urgency and protect our planet. We must continue to work to achieve our zero-waste future and build up our green infrastructure so that New York City can do its part to fight climate change. I hope all New Yorkers have a great and active Earth Day. April 24th is traditionally our annual Denim Day, a day committed to supporting survivors of sexual violence and increasing public awareness about this important issue. Denim Day was started in the aftermath of a rape trial in Italy where the survivor was blamed because of the jeans she wore. It's a day of action where we show our collective solidarity for survivors around the world and recommit to supporting survivors with the trauma-informed care and recovery they need. As we approach the month of May, I want to recognize several upcoming holidays and notable days. May 1st is May Day, also known as International Labor Day, in honor of the workers whose valuable labor keeps our city going. We will continue to support our workers and union partners in the movement for better working conditions and pay equity. May 6th is National Nurses Day. We are so grateful to our essential frontline healthcare workers who help keep our communities healthy and safe every day. May 7th is National Teacher Day. On this day, we pay tribute to our teachers who work tirelessly to educate our promising young scholars. We want to thank the dedicated and hardworking teachers who deserve the entire world and our support each and every day. And throughout the month of May, we're celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Haitian Heritage Month, Jewish American Heritage Month, Lupus Awareness Month, and Maternal Mental Health Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. Last week was Participatory Budgeting Vote Week. I want to take a moment to thank my colleagues who participated in this PB cycle, as well as all New Yorkers who voted for their favorite projects to improve our neighborhoods. We plan to announce the winning projects soon, so do stay tuned. Next, I want to acknowledge that members of the Youth Journalism Coalition are here in the council chambers today. And these bright young journalists represent the future of the critical fourth estate, and they are critical to the important work of diversifying newsrooms. Welcome to City Hall, your house, the people's house, and we thank you for all that you're doing to advance journalism in our city and beyond. Today, we're also joined by members of the School Construction Authority's mentorship program for minority-owned, women-owned, and locally based enterprises led by Celeste Morris. Thank you for your work to increase MWLBE participation in school construction projects and for being here at our stated meeting today. Now you can applaud. And before we continue, I do want to wish happy birthday to Councilmember Julie Wan, to council members Kalman Yeager, Chris Marte, and Mercedes Narcisse, who are all going to have a birthday cake on the 26th. Happy birthday, colleagues. And finally, colleagues, please do join me in congratulating Councilmember Carlina Rivera on the birth of her son, Oscar. Now we can move on to our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following finance items. A pre-considered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan renewing a partial 40-year Article 5 tax exemption for the preservation of 2 rent-stabilized buildings in Councilmember Abreu's district. A pre-considered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan authorizing a full 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for new construction of a 100% affordable housing building in Councilmember Holden's district. A pre-considered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan authorizing the conversion from Article 2 to a partial 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for the preservation of 2 buildings in Councilmember Ressler's district. And a pre-considered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan authoring a full 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for the new construction of 1 affordable senior housing building in Councilmember Bottcher's district. Next, we'll vote on the following land use items. A gaming facility text amendment that would allow applicants with a proposed gaming site in the city to be considered by committees of local officials established by the state's casino licensing process. Currently, casinos are not permitted uses within New York City zoning. This text amendment would resolve this zoning conflict while maintaining communities' decision-making authority on casino licenses within the state's application process, which first requires approval by local community advisory committees or CACs. Only applicants who submit an application before June 30th, 2025, and are awarded one of the 3 gaming facility licenses authorized by the State Commission after CAC approval and Gaming Facility Location Board recommendation would be able to operate in the city. Potential sites would be limited to high-density commercial and manufacturing areas. 81-01 Broadway Commercial Overlay, an application to bring several existing commercial uses into conformance with zoning in Councilmember Krishnan's district. East Tremont Cluster NCP is a UDAP approval, disposition of city-owned property, and an Article 11 tax exemption to facilitate the development of 3 new multifamily buildings, 62 affordable units and 1 superintendent unit, including 20 affordable independent residences for seniors in Councilmember Felice's district. Melrose Concourse NCP is a UDAP approval, acquisition, disposition of city-owned property, and an Article 11 tax exemption to facilitate the development of 3 new multifamily buildings with 71 affordable housing units and 1 superintendent unit, including 23 affordable independent residences for seniors in Councilmember Stevens' district. Genesis Multifamily Participation Loan Program, a UDAP approval, disposition of city-owned property, and an Article 11 tax exemption to facilitate the preservation of 8 buildings with 85 affordable residential units and 1 commercial or community unit in Councilmember Salam's district. Finally, 2 applications in Councilmember Aviles' district. 341 10th Street rezoning in Article 11 will facilitate the development of 2 mixed-use buildings, a 100-unit, 100% deeply affordable housing building under HPD's Sarah and Ella term sheets, and a 205-unit mixed-income MIH building, as well as the preservation of an existing 154-unit building through an Article 11 regulatory agreement. 41 Richard Street will facilitate a new 7-story mixed-use building consisting of light manufacturing, commercial office space, ground floor retail space, and 41 accessory parking spaces. Today, we'll also vote on the following resolutions and pieces of legislation. Resolution 279, sponsored by Council members Robert Holden and Vicky Palladino, would call on the United States Congress to pass and the President to sign legislation declaring April 26th annually as Korean War Veterans and Korean Defense Veterans Recognition Day to celebrate the bravery and sacrifice of those who served. We thank our staff member Regina Paul. Resolution 172, sponsored by Councilmember Sandy Nurse, would call on the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, which would establish an extended producer responsibility system for packaging. We thank our staff members Andrew Bourne and Ricky Chawla. Introduction 689A, sponsored by Councilmember Crystal Hudson, would codify the Cabinet for Older New Yorkers into city law. The Cabinet, made up of commissioners of 23 city agencies and chaired by the Commissioner of the Department for the Aging, or DFTA, was established in September 2022 to help improve programming and services for older New Yorkers. This legislation would fill out the Cabinet's membership with additional agencies and mayoral offices and expand the list of required invitees for Cabinet meetings to include the city's public public libraries. The district commissioner would be required to report annually to the council, public advocate, comptroller, borough presidents, and the public on the cabinet's activities. Thank you to our staff members, Christopher Pepe, Chloe Rivera, and Saimul Hamid. Introduction 129, sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brennan, would mandate a pilot program to install solar canopies in at least one city-controlled parking lot in each borough, where such a canopy would be cost-effective. After the conclusion of the pilot, the city would be required to submit a report identifying the parking lots where solar canopies were installed and recommendations as to whether and how the program could be expanded and made permanent. Thank you to our staff member, Claire McLaughlin. Thank you for your attention. Now I turn it back over to our Majority Leader.
Thank you, Speaker Adams. We will now move into discussion of general orders. I would like to recognize Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I'd like to make a motion to recommit LU 63 and Resolution 396 to the Land Use Committee for further consideration. This item relates to 97-22 Crestkill Place disposition in my district.
Colleagues, there's a motion on the floor to recommit Land Use Item 63 and accompanying Resolution 396 at 9722 Crestkill Place disposition to the Land Use Committee. Would anyone like to speak on this motion? Seeing none, a vote in favor is to send this item back to the committee, and a vote not in favor would be to leave it on the floor here today. I'd now like to call on the committee clerk to please call the roll.
Abreu.
Aye.
Ariola.
Aye.
Aviles.
Aye.
Ayala.
Aye.
Banks.
Aye.
Botcher.
Aye.
Brannan.
Aye.
Brewer.
Aye.
Brooks Powers.
Aye.
Caban.
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
De La Rosa.
Aye.
Dinowitz.
Aye.
Feliz.
Aye.
Gennaro.
Aye.
Gutierrez.
Aye.
Hanif.
Aye.
Hanks.
Aye.
Holden.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Joseph.
Aye.
Krishnan.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Marmarato.
Aye.
Marte.
Aye.
Mealy.
Aye.
Menon.
Aye.
Moya.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Narcisse.
Aye.
Nurse.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Nurse.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Sorry. Osei.
Aye.
Palladino.
Aye.
Powers.
Aye.
Wrestler.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Rivera. Salam.
Aye.
Salamanca.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Sanchez.
Aye.
Schulman.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Ung.
Aye.
Vernikov.
Aye.
Williams.
Thank you, colleagues. I vote aye.
Juan.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeager.
Aye.
Zhuang.
Aye.
Borelli.
Aye.
Farias.
I vote aye.
Speaker Adams.
I vote aye.
By a vote of 50 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstention, this motion is approved, and this land use item will be recommitted to the Land Use Committee for consideration. Report of special committees.
None.
Reports of standing committees.
Report of the Committee on Aging, Intro 689A, Cabinet for Older New Yorkers.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Resiliency, and Waterfronts, Intro 129A, Solar Canopies.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Finance, Preconsidered LU 70 and Reso 377 through Preconsidered LU 73 and Reso 380, Tax Exemptions.
Coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Land Use, LU 35 and Reso 381 and LU 36 and Reso 382, East Tremont Cluster.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 41 and Reso 383 through LU 47 and Reso 387, 341 10th Street.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 51 and Reso 388 and LU 52 and Reso 389, Melrose Concourse.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 53 and Reso 390 and LU 54 and Reso 391, Genesis MPLP.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 57 and Reso 392, Gaming Facility Text Amendment.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 58 and Reso 393 and LU 61 and Reso 394, Zoning Amendments.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 62 and Reso 395, Melrose Concourse.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 63 and Reso 396, 97-22 Crestkill Place disposition.
Coupled on general orders. I ask that the clerk take a roll call vote on all of the items coupled on today's general orders calendar.
Excuse me. Abreu. Ariola.
I vote aye.
One moment.
Madam Speaker, we have to move into discussion of general orders. So we're going to pause the votes and go back into discussion. I'd now like to call up and recognize Councilmember Hanif, followed by Aviles, and then Hudson.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I want to thank Councilmember Aviles and her team for their steadfast leadership and support in bringing the 341 10th Street rezoning over the finish line. This project began in District 39 last session, but is now in District 38 under the new council lines. I started working on this project as a staffer with my predecessor, made significant progress during my first term, and am thrilled to see our collective advocacy deliver a project that brings deeply affordable housing to vibrant, transit-rich Park Slope. In addition to a 100-unit, 100% affordable development for seniors and families through a partnership with HPD, this project includes deeper affordability beyond MIH on the second 205-unit development site, affordable housing preservation for residents of the existing building, and public open space. In addition to Councilmember Aviles and her team's critical leadership, I'd like to thank the 341 10th Street Tenant Association and leaders Rose Horton and Damon Duke for ensuring current residents' voices were included and heard, and Michelle De La Uz from Fifth Avenue Committee, who was an invaluable partner on this project. As our city sees the lowest vacancy rates in decades, it is my commitment to use every tool at my disposal to ensure every New Yorker has an opportunity to access dignified housing, raise a family, age in place, and thrive in this city. And I'm excited about the commitment. Yes, thank you.
Followed by Hudson, then Yeager.
Thank you. I would like to also start to thank Councilmember Hanif and her entire team for working on LU 47 res and corresponding res 387 for the 341 10th Street. I will not repeat all the gains of this site, but I do want to thank Councilmember Hanif, her team. I want to thank the residents in particular, and also Fifth Avenue Committee for their steadfast commitment. I would like the residents to know that we will be with them every step of the way, and we have worked very hard to make sure that their needs are centered and that no one is displaced, and that we in fact are creating much more affordability as possible. I'd also like to take a moment, so I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on this very complex project. I'd also like to encourage my colleagues to vote yes on 41 Richard Street, which is LU 58, and corresponding Reso 393. This is a great example of a rezoning that is truly leaning and really working with the community to ensure that
the interests of our community are held at heart. And so I would like to thank Jim Tempakis for being so responsive, to SBIDC for being a thought partner in this project, and to our land use team for their assistance to our team as we work through the project as well. So I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on both of these projects.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'd now like to recognize Hudson, followed by Yeager.
I'm good, Majority Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Yeager.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, the council is voting on a land use matter named the Gaming Facility Text Amendment. This council has never, notwithstanding the vote from Albany, ever approved gambling in the city to allow casinos in our city, but we have never voted on that as a body. This is the vote. Today is the vote. It's innocuously named as a facility text amendment, and maybe other matters will somehow result in some kind of community review, but the council as a body will never be able to vote on those matters. It will be left to the council member from that district. So if the proposed casino is a block out of your district, you have zero say, zero, none. A yes vote today removes a tool of review that this council utilizes to review land use matters. It is also a blanket statement of approval for the concept of casinos in our neighborhoods. If you don't like casinos in your neighborhoods and you vote yes today, it's a contradictory vote. In essence, it's a blank check, no pun intended, but it is a blank check to applications that we have not reviewed. The barometer of measure for who is allowed to benefit from the zoning text amendment is if they submitted an application that was approved by the New York State Gaming Commission. In other words, another body is going to say this application merits the meeting of what we did today, and we won't see it. We're taking away that tool from ourselves. Why would we unilaterally give up a level of authority that we have over land use matters? We're granted this privilege by the voters, by the city charter, to rule on these things, and we're walking away from it today. I can't vote yes to take away a tool from this council in reviewing ULURP matters that are within our review, and I will be voting no on it. I urge you all, my colleagues, please vote no on this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Madam Speaker, before we move on to the vote of general orders, a point of clarification. Land use item 63 and resolution 396, 97-22 Crestkill Place disposition is recommitted to the Land Use Committee and is not coupled on general orders. I'd now like to ask the clerk to do roll call on the vote.
Thank you. Excuse me. Ariola.
Aye.
Aviles.
I vote aye on all with the exception of LU 57 and corresponding resolution 392.
Ayala.
Aye.
Banks.
Aye.
Botcher.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Brewer.
I vote aye, except LU 72 and Resolution 379 on the Mitchell-Lamas, and LU 57 and Resolution 392.
Brooks Powers.
I vote aye.
Caban.
I vote aye on all with the exception of LU 57 and the accompanying resolution.
Carr.
Aye on all.
De La Rosa.
Aye.
Dinowitz.
Aye.
Feliz.
Aye.
Thank you. Gennaro.
Aye.
Gutierrez.
I vote aye with the exception of LU 57 and accompanying resolution 392, for which I vote no.
Thank you. Hanif.
Aye on all with the exception of LU 57 and accompanying resolution 392, for which I vote no.
Hanks.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Regarding LU 57 and Resolution 392, I just wanted to state for the record that this is not an endorsement of every application. The vote I take today is one, to allow the state's process to move forward, seeing that there are no currently no gaming applications in my district. I vote aye on all.
Holden.
Aye on all except LU 57 and accompanying Reso 392, for which I
Hudson.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
Regarding the casino text amendment, this vote is not an endorsement for casinos. Rather, it is a vote to allow the state's review process to be enacted. The state's Community Advisory Committee process, which includes individuals appointed by elected officials, including the local city council member, provides a robust opportunity to ensure any applicants for a gaming license meet local requirements related to design and community benefits. There will also be ample opportunity for local input through meetings and written testimony, and local community groups, including community boards, can still pass resolutions indicating their positions on the proposal. If they don't meet the community's needs, they will not pass that process and not receive a license. And there is no legal requirement that any casinos must be cited in New York City, as the state just authorized up to 3 casino licenses for downstate New York, including the 5 boroughs, Long Island, and Westchester. As such, I vote aye on all.
Joseph.
I vote aye and align my statement with Councilmember Hudson.
Krishnan.
Aye on all except for LU 57 and accompanying Resolution 392, for which I vote no.
Lee.
Aye on all.
Lewis.
I vote aye.
Marmarato.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Why have processes in place if this city will move to circumvent them? If we allow the casino tax amendment to pass, we put ourselves at risk to allow similar situations to take place when the city feels like they do not want to take due process. I cannot support anything that removes local zoning control from current city council members and our community boards. Our constituents need to have a larger and louder voice in this process. And since DCP is trying to take that away from my constituents, I am here to take a stand and will be voting no on LU 57 and the accompanying Reso 392. I vote aye on all the rest.
Marte.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
Casinos are bad. Casinos are wrong. What's worse about this application is that a casino could be announced tomorrow in our district and we have no say on it. We could cast a vote today, that doesn't mean nothing for tomorrow. And that's why I vote no on LU 57 and Reso 392 and aye on the rest. Thank you.
Mealy.
I vote aye on all except LU 57, Reso 392, and no on Reso 379.
Thank you. Menon.
Aye on all.
Moya.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Narcisse.
Aye on all.
Nurse.
I vote no on LU 57 and Reso 39 and aye on all the rest.
Osei.
Aye on all.
Palladino.
Permission to explain my vote?
Permission granted.
Thank you. When I was elected to office, I represent District 19 in Queens. My district spoke very loudly about how they felt about the upcoming possible casino, which will be in our part of Queens. I am here to represent the people of my district. You are all here to represent the people of your district. I agree with my fellow council members who agreed to vote no on LU 0057, and I too vote no on LU 0057 with accompanying Reso 392. We are here to represent the people, and I vote on behalf of District 19. Thank you very much.
Powers.
Aye on all the rest.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Powers.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Wrestler.
Permission to explain my vote?
Permission granted.
Thank you. I'd like to vote aye on all today, and I'd just like to comment briefly on LU 72 and the accompanying Reso 379 pertaining to Cadman Towers in my district. This is not a solution writ large for the Mitchell-Lama program. This is a tailored solution that meets the specific needs of Cadman Towers. And it will transition Cadman Towers from one type of affordable housing cooperative to another type of affordable housing cooperative and ensure and guarantee that affordability for the next 99 years with the necessary capital funds that we need to ensure the conditions are what the residents of Cadman Towers deserve long term. Thank you to all my colleagues who have supported it.
Riley.
Aye on all.
Salam.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
I would like to vote aye on all and also align my comments with the comments of Councilmember Hudson.
Thank you. Salamanca.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Sanchez.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
Thank you. I vote aye on all with the exception of Land Use 57 and accompanying Resolution 392. And just wanted to note on Land Use 72, on Cadman Plaza, just wanted to note my support for this particular project moving forward, even as we, as a council and as a city, have to do much more to figure out and fund ways to preserve Mitchell-Lamas in their original form. And so I wanted to just thank Cooperators United for Mitchell-Lama and Mitchell-Lama United for your advocacy. And with that, I already voted, so thank you.
Thank you. Schulman.
Aye on all.
Stevens.
Aye on all except LU 72, which I abstain.
Thank you. Ung.
Aye on all.
Vernikov.
Aye on all with the exception of LU 57 and accompanying Reso 392.
Williams.
I vote aye on all.
Juan.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Yeager.
May I be excused to explain my vote?
Permission granted.
Thank you. Couldn't have said it better than the gentleman from the 1st District. Casinos are bad, but they're even worse in our residential neighborhoods. They're worse just blocks away from our schools, from our kids, from family lives, and no amount of revenue is worth destroying neighborhoods in this city so that a lot of people can make some money, or a lot of people can make a lot of money, or a few people can make a lot of money. No matter how you look at it, that's what this is about. It's bad policy. It's our city, and it's our job to protect it. And that's what my vote is intended to do. I vote aye on all, with the exception of LU 57 and Resolution 392. And God help New York.
Zhuang.
Aye on all.
Abreu.
I vote aye on all with the exception of LU 72 and accompanying Reso 379, on which I vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Borelli.
Aye on all.
Farias.
I vote aye on all.
Speaker Adams.
I vote aye.
All items on today's general order calendar are adopted by a vote of 50 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, with the exception of Land Use Item 57 and Resolution 392, which was adopted by a vote of 35 in the affirmative, 15 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, and LU 72 and Resolution 379, which was adopted with 46 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and 1 abstention. Madam Speaker, we will now move into introduction and reading of bills.
All bills have been referred to committees as indicated on today's agenda.
Thank you. We will now move into the discussion of resolutions. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Palladino, followed by Nurse.
Thank you very much, everybody, and good afternoon. I want to thank Chairman Holden and my colleagues that are here today. This Resolution 279 is a resolution calling upon the United States Congress to pass and the President to sign legislation declaring April the 26th annually as Korean War Veterans and Korean Defense Veterans Recognition Day to celebrate the bravery and the sacrifice of those who served. I'm so proud to work with you on the Resolution 279 declaring April the 26th as the Korean War Veterans and the Korean Defense Veterans Recognition Day to celebrate the bravery and the sacrifice for those who served. For those who don't know, this was called a war. It was not called a war. It was called a conflict, much like the Vietnam War. Difference is these 5 million Americans who went over there to fight, they fought for 3 years. They have yet to be recognized. It was only a 3-year war, yet 5 million people went. It's sometimes referred to as the Forgotten War, but all of us know. But for all of us as Americans, we will never
Councilmember,
forget.
please wrap. Your time is expired.
Okay. Even after 70 years, these servicemen and women deserve the recognition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Nurse.
Thank you, and I want to acknowledge this is Councilmember Dinowitz's plastic water bottle.
Actually, definitely not mine.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Today we are voting on a resolution in support of the packaging reduction and recycling system for packaging. New York City trash is overflowing with packaging, plastics, and paper waste that is adding stress to our aging waste infrastructure and creating barriers on our pathways to zero waste. Last year, we passed this resolution. It didn't quite make it over the finish line. I do hope it passes in the state this year. Thank you again for supporting it. This bill is estimated to bring about $150 million to our Department of Sanitation to help us meet our zero waste targets following the Zero Waste Act that we passed last year. So I think all of the colleagues who have supported so far and encourage everyone to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move into the discussion of resolutions. Pardon. We will now have a voice vote on today's resolutions. If you'd like to vote against or abstain from either of today's resolutions, please notify the Legislative Documents Unit by email or by approaching the dais. I'll now read today's resolutions into the record. Resolution 172A calls on the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign Assembly Bill Number A5322-B and Senate Bill Number S4246-B, also known as the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, which would establish an extended producer responsibility system for packaging. With all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Resolution 279 calls on the United States Congress to pass and the President to sign legislation declaring April 26th annually as Korean War Veterans and Korean Defense Veterans Recognition Day to celebrate the bravery and sacrifice of those who served. With all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We will now move into general discussion. I'd like to first recognize Councilmember Gennaro, followed by Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I have a couple of bills going in. The first one I want to talk about is 814. This is kind of an upgrade of the comprehensive stormwater management plan that I authored and passed in 2005. After 19 years, it's due for an upgrade. This would, I can't go through everything it does, I'd be here all day. One thing it does, the city has to identify and report flood-prone areas across the 5 boroughs and develop strategies to mitigate those hazards. It also requires DEP to incorporate a timeline for installing larger storm sewer mains and gray water reuse systems in flood-prone areas. Also, finally, would create a timeline for the build-out of storm sewers in Southeast Queens. There's not a piece of paper in New York City that can tell you when Southeast Queens storm sewers are going to be built out. Many of those communities have no storm sewers. This would deal with that. Second bill is Intro 815. Very proud to co-prime with Councilmember Brannan and Nurse. This would add language to Local Law 122 of 2021 that was authored by Councilmember Brannan, and would require the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to create an inland flood hazard area map that determine which areas outside the federal designated coastal flood areas are most vulnerable to that are on the coast and have all this protection. It would move them to areas that flood. Another long bill, but a good one. I have a reso. Proud to co-prime with council members Ressler and Nurse. Call upon the governor to ensure that, oh, that's it?
That's it.
That's it?
Thank you, council member.
I was just doing good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Lewis, followed by Hanif.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader, for the opportunity to discuss 6 pieces of legislation that I'll introduce today in partnership with Councilmembers De La Rosa, Nurse, and Stevens. As we observe Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April, it's crucial to recognize that sexual assault is never an isolated issue. It's deeply ingrained within the broader context of the culture of violence and rape culture, a prevalent global issue created by systems of oppression, racism, sexism, and classism. In addition, let's not lose sight of the continued fight for pay parity for women, protecting youth and all demographics from human trafficking, and bridging safe spaces for survivors, advocates, and supporting communities to report and address sexual assault crimes. I want to encourage my colleagues to sign on to Intros 830, Intros 827, Reso 373, Intros 831, 828, and 829, which is in regards to civil service exams. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Hanif, followed by Brooks Powers.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today I'm excited to be introducing Resolution 368 alongside Councilmembers Osei, Rivera, Menon, and Caban in support of the Living Wage for Musicians Act in Congress. Most of us, myself included, use streaming platforms as our primary way of listening to music. The songs that we stream soundtrack our commutes, our workouts, and our quality time with friends. But the popularity of music streaming platforms has not benefited the artists that make the songs we listen to. Currently, the average recording artist receives less than 1/3 of a penny when someone streams their song on Spotify. These low rates of pay make it incredibly difficult for musicians to make a living. We may have our interborough squabbles, but we all know that New York City makes the best music in the entire world. If we want to keep it that way, we have to make sure musicians can make enough money to live here. The Living Wage for Musicians Act, which Representatives Tlaib and Bowman introduced in March with the support of United Musicians and Allied Workers, would do this by requiring streaming companies to pay into a nonprofit fund through which artists would be paid at least 1 penny per stream. This would be a game changer for New York City musicians and keep our city the music capital of the world. I encourage my colleagues to sign on as a sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Brooks Powers, followed by Riley.
I'm proud to introduce Intro 808, which would strengthen and expand existing wage transparency requirements in New York City. Pay inequity harms vulnerable communities and hampers economic growth in our neighborhoods, and it's just not fair. The bill would require employers to disclose information about non-wage compensation like bonuses and benefits as part of job postings, and would specify how employers determine the range of pay they would offer for a position. This legislation builds on the council's years-long efforts to curb longstanding wage disparities based on wage and gender. I look forward to carrying forward the work of closing the pay gap, and I urge my colleagues to sign on. Next, today is a bittersweet day for the 31st Council District, as it is the last stated meeting for my Director of Budget and Legislation, Jack Siegenthaler. Over the span of time that Jack has been a part of my team, I know he has felt like part of many of your teams as well. That is because Jack is one of the most kind, sweet, and collegial people the council has been fortunate to have seen. Jack, during your time with our office, our staff, our constituents, they have truly valued and appreciated your compassion, your time, and most of all, your willingness to fight for the resources of the 31st Council District, that what we need and deserve. You came to the work with the heart of a true servant. You've helped to make our legislation better, whether helping to usher through legislation to ensure greater equity for pool infrastructure, or helping to shape the office of the homeowner advocate, or standing up the Far Rockaway Trauma and Health Care Task Force. Jack, you have left a mark that will be lasting for the entire city of New York. You have taken time to get to know members of our district and the issues that persist. And through the lens, your work has helped to change how we look at funding groups, looking for ways to be most impactful.
Councilmember.
I'm wrapping up now, thank you. He deserves his flowers. As you embark on your next chapter as a law student at Harvard, we know you will be successful. Harvard is very fortunate to have you in their midst. Jack, your future is bright, and please know that I, along with our entire team, will be on the sidelines cheering you along the whole way through. So it's not goodbye, it's see you later. I look forward to celebrating you, Jack Siegenthaler, Esquire, in the near future. Yay.
I only allowed more time for Jack. I'd now like to call on Councilmember Riley, followed by Yeager, then Joseph.
Thank you, Majority Leader. The complexities of running a small business in New York City comes with unique barriers and challenges, including limited access to capital, resources, and network. I am proud to be introducing Intro 844 today, which will create a micro-grant program to support NYCHA-based small business owners. The New York City Economic Development Corporation will offer micro-grants for up to $10,000 where appropriate to establish, expand, or grow businesses as part of its public housing entrepreneurship program. This measure ensures we are taking a proactive step toward creating a more inclusive economy where every entrepreneur has a chance to succeed regardless of where they come from. Throughout this legislation, the micro-grants will address systematic barriers and promote economic equity by leveling the playing field, creating opportunities for sustainable growth and prosperity, particularly aiding our communities of color. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to NYC Youth Journalism Coalition and our student journalists here today for their day of action, advocating for journalism for all and the expansion for journalism programs in our New York City public schools that have been historically underserved. We say all the time that representation matters, but representation starts with accessibility. As co-chair of the BLAC, I stand with my colleagues in the NYC YJC, echoing the importance and power of our youth's voices and their leaderships in amplifying the impactful movement that positively affects our society today. As a city, we must ensure all students have an equal opportunity to improve and bring fresh perspectives to our media landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, and now I'd like to recognize Councilmember Yeager, followed by Joseph, then Hudson.
Pass, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Joseph, followed by Hudson and Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Majority Leader, and colleagues, and of course, shout out to Youth Journalism Coalition today. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Reso number 372, urging New York City Public Schools to support the creation of student newspapers in every high school, ensuring that each high school has a student newspaper for essential, for fairness, equity, especially for students from low-income families. It's an investment in fostering critical thinking among students and reinforcing democratic principles.
A student newspaper offers a platform for students to express their ideas and develop critical thinking skills as noted in the resolution. Participating in a student newspaper not only enhances students' knowledge and abilities, but also fosters democratic values, government accountability, and well-informed society. Colleagues, I trust in this commitment for New York City students to fairness and equity for all students, regardless of economic background, race, and zip code. I urge you to support this resolution calling on New York City Public Schools to provide resources and assistance to establish a student newspaper in every non-charter public school in New York City. I extend my gratitude to the team for their support in introducing this resolution, and to the youth today who stand, who wants to be our voice, who wants to tell their stories by using the power of the pen. I salute you. Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson, followed by Gutierrez, and then Brewer.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I'd like to first thank this council for passing my bill, Intro 689, to codify the Cabinet for Older New Yorkers and strengthen the requirements of this body, which coordinates disparate agencies to meet the unique needs of older New Yorkers. As our city and our nation rapidly age, this council is fighting for older adults by establishing laws that directly benefit and impact older adults now and in the future. And I'd like to also quickly draw your attention to two bills I'm introducing today with Councilmember Nurse and Public Advocate Williams, Intro 825 and Reso 371. Right now, individuals leaving city jails have little choice in how to access their commissary funds, as the Department of Correction provides a check with the balance of funds. For many unbanked New Yorkers, they will need to pay a fee to cash this check, and it can take hours or days to do so, which can be challenging for individuals coming out of jails with limited resources. This bill will require the department to inform any individuals who are leaving incarceration, verbally and in writing, in a language they can understand, how much money remains in their commissary account, and to return all unused funds in a method of preference, including cash or certified check, prior to the individual leaving department custody. I'd like to thank Legal Aid, Freedom Agenda, and Fortune Society for helping craft this bill, and the accompanying resolution 371 supports a state bill that would provide up to $2,550 over 6 months for individuals released from state correctional facilities to provide greater support to folks upon release for things like food, clothes, housing, and transit. These bills will ensure New Yorkers can leave jails with resources they need to succeed and not end up involved again with our justice system, and I urge you all to co-sponsor them. Thank you.
And I'd like to recognize Councilmember Gutierrez, followed by Brewer, and then Bottcher.
Thank you, Majority Leader. New Yorkers know that sometimes the worst can happen, and so they insure their homes, cars, and health. But for renters, their belongings are not protected unless they choose to purchase renter's insurance, which most New Yorkers do not. In the event of a fire, a flood, or other emergency, the damage can be catastrophic for households, and there are no safety nets to help New Yorkers rebuild their lives. Today, along with Councilmembers Sanchez and Juan, I'm introducing a bill that would require the city to study the feasibility of creating a low-cost renter's insurance product. Similar to the city's existing partnership with Metro Plus for health insurance for low-income New Yorkers, a city-run renter's insurance product would create affordable protections for the most vulnerable New Yorkers, save the city significant dollars in emergency shelter costs, and generate revenue. It's a win-win for New Yorkers and the city's bottom line, and I encourage my colleagues to sign on to Intro 817. Thank you.
Councilmember Brewer, followed by Bottcher, and then Aviles.
Thank you. I just want to mention that this year, the Inner Circle, apparently, their charity are high school journalism programs. So for anybody who's listening, that might be a place to get funding. I want to mention Intro 806 has to do with pedicabs and the visibility of the ride timer. Believe it or not, it's hard to see, and the tourists are overcharged. Pedicab rates are per minute, not per passenger or per block. And there was a local law, 59 in 2012, that mandated that the operators of pedicab display a timer for passengers to see, but when Oversight and Investigations Division investigators went, you couldn't find it. So this bill requires a timer to be affixed to the rear of the bicycle seat in clear view of all passengers. Lots more work to be done on pedicabs. Reso 363 calls on the state to establish a tax incentive program to encourage developers to plant new trees in development sites. I think we all know the importance of trees. Developers are required to protect existing trees and to replace trees that are damaged, but they're not required to add new trees to sites where there is development, where they did not exist before, and we want as many trees as possible. Resolution 364 calls on the state to pass and the governor to sign legislation to prohibit the imposition of limits on the length of stay at homeless shelters and emergency congregate housing. I think we've all been fighting the 30-day and the 60-day, at least some of us, and I think it is destructive for particularly the children in the public school. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Bottcher, followed by Aviles, and then Krishnan.
It's no secret that we're in the midst of a major mental health crisis in New York State, and addressing this crisis can feel overwhelming at times as it involves reversing decades of disinvestment and failed policy, and because mental illness is intertwined with so many other issues. We need more immediate steps that will help now. And my team and I have identified an effort underway in New York right now that I believe should be supported, and it will help address the major shortage of social workers in New York State. To become a licensed master social worker, individuals must graduate from an accredited social work program. They have to have at least 3 years full-time supervised postgraduate clinical social work experience, complete training and identification and reporting of child abuse, and pass a standardized test administered by the Association of Social Work Boards. The standardized test has proven to be a major barrier to becoming a social worker, and there's been troubling racial disparities in who passes this test, with only 44% of Black social work graduates and 62% of Hispanic Latino graduates passing in 2021 compared to 85% of white graduates. Because of these disparities, states like Illinois, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Utah have passed legislation eliminating this standardized test, and states like California and Florida never had the test in the first place. Not that we should try to be like Florida in any way. I am introducing a resolution today in support of state legislation by Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas and a Senator Samra Brooke that would eliminate this licensing requirement. After Illinois did this, they saw 3,000 social workers in the first 6 months after passage. I'll be sending an opportunity around to sign up to co-sponsor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. I'd now like to recognize Councilmember Aviles, followed by Krishnan, and then Narcisse.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today I'm introducing Reso 361. This resolution comes directly from the work I've done in conjunction with community members and the Association on Neighborhood Development to establish a set of land use principles. I'm so proud of the work which has helped to guide us in our land use decision-making process and hope to build on it in the years to come. Among one of the demands I heard loud and clear from my community is that we do not want corporate landlords buying up small homes. This is a trend we've seen on the rise in the city and nationally, with private equity firms having spent hundreds of millions of dollars over the last few years buying up smaller apartment buildings all over Brooklyn and Queens. One firm, the Carlyle Group, bought more than 150 apartment buildings in Brooklyn since 2020. Hand in hand with corporate ownership was what we see is a decline in needed repairs and ever-increasing rents, driving up the cost of housing stock in this city. Intense displacement. We must stop allowing profit over people to occur in this city, especially with regards to our housing stock. And in our effort to make this city affordable for New Yorkers, no stone should be unturned. I encourage you all to sign on to this resolution, which supports federal legislation that would prevent hedge fund control of housing in our city, allowing greater opportunity for the families of our city. Please vote for sign on to 361. Thank you.
Councilmember Krishnan.
Bad landlords have long used LLCs and other murky legal structures to hide their identities and avoid responsibility for their buildings. That is why I am proud with Councilmember Linda Lee to introduce the Landlord Transparency Act, Intro 826, which will expand publicly available information of the owners of any residential property, including LLCs, in New York City. We are in the midst of a housing crisis, and New Yorkers deserve transparency and accountability from the people who own their buildings. Thank you.
Councilmember Narcisse.
I was so proud to stand in the rain with all my journalists, future journalists in New York City. I stand with you to end the disparity in access to journalism programs, particularly in the school with high poverty rates across our city. The reality that only 6% of the school in New York City, highest poverty areas, have publication is disheartening. This inequity not only deprives students of valuable educational opportunities, but also perpetuates disparities in representation and storytelling in our media landscape. Journalism education doesn't just train students for a career in the media. It fosters curiosity, critical thinking, and the ability to articulate one's voice. And especially in some areas, we know how our voice can be dismissed. It empowers students to become informed citizens, advocates for change, and improves communication skill. That's right, I wholeheartedly support the efforts of the youth that you see in the balcony today. We are outside in the rain. This is to push for education citywide. We must ensure that every student, regardless of their background or zip code, has the opportunity to develop these essential skills. I am delighted to stand here with you all to continue fighting a good fight. Journalism. In equity, we need equity in journalism, not yesterday, today more than ever, where we know that people can tell you story, they tell you lies in all platforms, but with you, I am counting because I know we have a brighter future, not only for New York City, for the world in general. Keep people accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll now call on Speaker Adrian Adams to close today's stated meeting.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Students of the Youth Journalism Coalition, please do join me down here for a photo on the floor of the council chambers. The stated meeting of April 18th, 2024 is hereby adjourned.